What's up, gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. In this video, I am going to share with you how I was able to meet highly attractive women fast in Warsaw, Poland. But before we do that, make sure to smash the like button. Costs you nothing, means the world to me. Really helps me out with the algorithm, and I would truly appreciate it. Now, with all that said, let's get into the topic of this video, and I am going to be saving the best method for now. The first method is something I started doing about 10 days before I left for Poland, and that is swiping on Tinder. And obviously, that is going to be a somewhat effective method. However, the quality of these women probably not as high as the last option that I am going to share with you, because the last option is actually how I was able to meet models within 3 days of arriving in Poland. Now, with Tinder, in general, the quality is going to be lower, and I would say that they aren't going to be real interested in you if you are a purebred tourist. I will also say that the average woman in Poland probably a little bit more attractive than the average woman in most Western countries. I myself tend to prefer the Ukrainian women, who I think are far superior to Polish women. But in general, Polish women are going to be fairly attractive. Not necessarily the body type that I like, but they objectively do have pretty faces. And from what I have noticed is a majority of them tend to be at least 5'5", which is a little bit taller than my liking, but that is just something that you should know if you are interested. And so, like I said, I started swiping about 10 days before I left, and I was able to get a couple dates from that. In fact, I was able to have a date almost as soon as I got to Warsaw. That said, it's probably the lowest quality of all the options. So the second option is actually going to be cold approach. Now, I have only done a few cold approaches, so the volume just isn't there for me. And admittedly, I should probably put more volume in before speaking more in depth on this topic. But I will say that if you can separate yourself from being a tourist, that is probably going to help. And then, yes, you're probably going to get rejected, although they're going to be fairly nice about it. Whether they just say they don't speak English, or maybe they say they have a boyfriend, for the most part, they're going to be letting you down gently. I will also say that I had success to some extent cold approaching, and these women were, in my opinion, more attractive than the women on Tinder. And there could be a number of reasons for that. Maybe my Tinder profile isn't the greatest, I don't have professional photos, yada, 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 and so on and so forth. But I find that they respect the fact that you are approaching them and that you are acting like a masculine man by having the huevos to approach these women. And I find that they appreciate it, and it makes you a little bit more valuable. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about day game in the sense of just walking around trolling the streets for, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I'm talking about just generally talking to women you come in contact with when you're walking somewhere, or when you're at a cafe, or even if you're at a nightclub. I would consider all those things cold approaches, and I wouldn't consider that day gaming, or I guess a nightclub would be night game or whatever you want to call it. But I'm just going to lump that into cold approach as well. But more on that topic here in a second, actually. But with that said, to wrap up the thoughts on cold approach, I do believe you can get more attractive women than most people would be able to get on the dating apps, especially if you present the right vibe, if you're well dressed, you're well groomed, you have decent hygiene, and you do the general stuff that I talk about. You're not a fat slob, and so on and so forth. And I find that the level of English is decently high. So you shouldn't run into much of a language barrier, although it certainly will happen. Now, with that said, the final method and the best method is, wait for it, social circle. So, social circle is the number one method in my opinion. Now, obviously, I didn't build this social circle myself. My friend built a social circle and he invited me into his social circle. So that means you need to have some sort of tie to this place, or you need to simply start from ground zero and get invited to a social circle. Now, this is great because you get social proof and you also get some level of inherent status. So, for example, my buddy isn't just going to hang out with anybody. So, the fact that he is hanging out with me implies that I have a certain level of status that would make me a net positive to the social group. And so he had to put in the work to build that social circle, and I was able to leech authority off of that social circle and get access to the high quality and the beautiful, attractive women within his social circle. And some of those women, like I previously touched on, are legitimate models. And because you have a certain level of inherent value or perceived value, I should say, because the person who invited you in the social circle is essentially vouching for you, you are going to be perceived in a more positive light. Now, I'm not to now that's not to say it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel, because you still have to be able to have the social skills, the social awareness, the conversational skills to make stuff happen within that social circle. But it makes it a lot easier, and obviously it is a lot easier to approach the women within the social circle because you're not really approaching them. You're all in the same social circle. You're all in the same group. So it's kind of expected that you talk to all the people in the group. And so moving forward, I would say social circle is undoubtedly number one, especially for getting access to the higher quality women. Now, I know for a fact that many of these women are not on dating apps because they flat out told me we don't use dating apps. Now, obviously, they could have been deceptive in deceiving me, but I highly doubt that. They seemed pretty straightforward, and I'm not going to get into the details of the night, but they were pretty open books as it related to their life. And I also will create a video based on what they told me about how Polish women in the about 22 to 26-year-old age bracket feel about black men, which I think many of you, if you are a black man, are going to be a little surprised about. Now, with all that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. I truly appreciate it. Leave your comments down below, and I will see you guys very soon. As always, peace, much love.